Darren, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool.
Let's see.
There he
you go.
is.
Hold on. Let me turn that off. What's going on?
Not too much, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Good.
Finished caulking the downstairs. So, you know, we'll find whatever's next, and I'll jump on that.
You got the caulking done. That's a pretty big deal, buddy.
Yeah, I got the caulk done, caulk gun done, and it's just whatever else we have.
That's right. That's right. How's the weather in your part today?
Man, it is beautiful. It's like 74 degrees right now.
You may not want to tell anybody that's on this call that. That's awesome.
We got a cool front coming through tonight. I think it's going to get to 68, and that's it.
68. I'm feeling really sorry for you guys right now.
Yeah, it's a bit rough.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'll appreciate you joining up today.
Okay. Man, I appreciate you inviting me to this.
Yeah. You guys. Oh, hang on. I got some more people.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Kim. How are you?
It's just me. It's Kim. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, we're doing good.
Good to see you guys. My video's off right. Oh, good. My video's off right now, but probably off for the whole meeting. But I'm here, and I'm happy to see you.
Awesome. We appreciate it. Hey, Brett.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing, buddy?
Good. Hang on. There we go. How are you, man?
Good. Yeah. How are things in your part?
Busy. Well, the school school out. That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Recent grace. So it's
Yeah. And how old are your kids again, bud?
Grace is kindergarten, and Reese is second grade.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Good. Yeah, it's good news. It's things are starting to get a little better for us, huh?
Yeah.
Hi, Jim.
Howdy, you would be Keith.
Yes, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for coming on today. We'll get a few more people entered in here, and then we'll get started. Yeah, we got quite a few people.
Hi, Keith.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, not much.
Yeah.
You tell me.
How you been feeling, Jock?
Oh, off and on, but pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Are the clouds working out a little bit, bud?
Yeah. I'm gaining a little bit every day, I think.
Love it.
Have good days and bad days, but you're probably acquainted with all of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of us are.
Yeah.
Oh no, we don't know anything about. We know nothing about that.
All right.
Yeah. we'll give this a couple more minutes, let some more folks get on here and before we kick it off, it's good to have everybody coming on here. I appreciate it. And you're all looking pretty good. You guys probably haven't met Darren yet. He's on here. I don't know if you guys can see him or not, but he lives in Texas. And so he was just bragging to me about how great the weather is there.
I mean,
A braggart, eh?
I had to throw you under the bus, Darren, for saying that.
Weather's great here too. It's snowing.
Yeah, yeah.
It is snowing.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
need
that's
it.
right.
Need it really bad. Otherwise, we're not going to have a good summer.
Yeah.
It's even
Yeah.
snowing in Portland, huh, Joyce?
Water.
Joyce, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's snowing in Portland too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's so right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Hey, we're getting I can't keep up with everybody here. Michelle, you made it anyway. That's great.
We're working on it.
Yeah. Hey, Lonnie.
Good morning or good afternoon, sorry. You can tell it's been a busy day.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's give this just a couple more minutes. See if we get any more.
Hi, Lonnie.
It's no, look at this.
So, Keith, I have an idea. You know, I can't help it, I apologize. So, Carol Stiles calls me the calico cat because I'm always dreaming up crazy stuff. This is a simple idea. One of the things, I just left, therapy at the hospital, and hi, Jim. And one of the things I thought that we don't do enough within the stroke community, and this is very true of me, is we don't celebrate personally our little victories, because all of our lives have challenges and they're different for everybody. You know, I've got, body stuff, but I really think I don't even acknowledge myself enough about those little struggles that I accomplished. So I wondered at the end of the day of our meeting today, could we maybe let everybody share just something that they have maybe happened this week that is a little accomplishment? You know, for me, I'll share mine now to give you an idea. You know, I had to go to therapy, it was freezing. I have a really hard time putting a coat on. And I thought, darn it, I'm going to sit down and put this coat on no matter how long it takes.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about little things.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all. And now I'll quit talking so everybody else can jump in the meeting.
Very good. Very good. Well, we will do that at the end, Lonnie. I think that's good. It's funny that you said that because I actually made some notes for the end of the meeting as well, but that's a great idea. Thank you for saying that. So I think let's kick this thing off, and I'll just keep my eyes open for anybody new.
There's Michelle. I love seeing everybody.
We got a lot of great people on here today. Thank you guys so much for coming. And
It's Michelle's birthday.
Michelle. Oh
Happy
my
birthday.
gosh. Now I know what we're going to do at the end of the meeting.
Happy birthday, Michelle.
Hi. Sorry, go ahead.
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Michelle.
all right, so I'm gonna kick this off and get started. Happy birthday, Michelle. That's awesome. We won't ask how many years, but
Yeah. I didn't know. I didn't know.
I don't know, she says.
That's
the way to do it.
Go up there. I don't.
That's
We
cute.
can just make them up now.
Pretty good. Well, at the end, what we'll do is today, if there's any new information, we'll have that towards the end, like Lanae was saying, and if anybody wants to talk about, something that they're doing now that they weren't doing before, because one of the things I've noticed is a lot of us stroke survivors, we don't realize the growth that we're seeing within ourselves, right? We're so focused on doing stuff every day, and our family members really notice that we're making changes and we're growing all the time, but we don't, because we're so focused on doing, or we're in our own way a lot of times, right? And so I think that's really good, Lanae, and we'll talk about that at the end. So today we have Dr. Jim Porzelius. Am I saying that right?
Sure.
Sure. I think he's giving me a pass.
Are you in the meeting?
He's a psychologist, and you work at St. Charles, don't you,
Yep.
Jim?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to kind of have more of an open agenda today. Jim's going to start us off and talk about a few things. I know that on the meeting agenda, I said, we can talk about some of how we control our own emotions and some of those things that come up with us. And so, but Jim, why don't you just kind of take it away, and then we'll kick in and off as we do.
Sure. Thanks for having me. This is a great group, great turnout on Zoom, and it's fun for me. I haven't seen this many people without masks on for a long time. It's so fun to see faces all day in here in the hospital, and everybody I see has a mask. So it's a bit of a treat. So I know many of you because I do work here in the hospital in the inpatient rehabilitation center. I'm just gonna quickly tell you what I do for those who I haven't worked with, so you know where I'm coming from. I work in the inpatient rehab center. I've been here for almost 22 years now, where we see people after they've had a stroke, been in the hospital for a little bit usually, and then they come to rehab to get that first part of the recovery before they head back home. And I spend about half my time working with people as they come through rehab and working with the team to help the people who are coming through rehab. Probably half the patients in rehab have had a stroke. The other half are an assortment of things, other kinds of brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, some neurologic diseases that all of them are things that change the way you're functioning for a long time. So they require some new learning and some recovery. And that's when we work with people in rehab. And we usually see people probably for an average of about 8 days there, but it varies from 5 days to 4 weeks for how long people might be in rehab. The other half of my time, I do an outpatient practice where I see people longer term after they've been in the hospital. So I do that sort of typical, 1 hour every other week or so working with people. And the people that I see in my outpatient practice are also people who have rehab kind of challenges. So a lot of people with strokes, a lot of people with neurologic diseases. I work with a lot of people with Parkinson's and MS. A lot of people who've had brain injuries or spinal cord injuries. So all my work is with people who are dealing with long-term health consequences of one kind or another. So that's kind of me. And it's really what I've always done in my career. I'm a psychologist, and we spend, the first whole big chunk of our lives in training. So we really can't give a presentation without referring to that. So I have to do that too. So before I was here, I worked in a rehab facility in Portland. Prior to that, I was assistant professor at the University of Rochester School of Medicine in New York. Prior to that, I was a fellow at University of Case Western University Medical School in Cleveland. And before that, I was a resident at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. And before that, I got my PhD at Rush University in Chicago. So I've traveled around a bit. Most psychologists train in a regular university setting. My training has always been in medical centers. So this is what I know, and this is what I do. So that's my little brief tour across the country with me and my training. What I thought I'd do today is just talk a little bit about coping in general. That's a question I get a lot. You know, people are saying, this is the challenge. I have to cope with this. What does that mean? What do we do? And I would just do a few minutes to sort of throw out some things that I run into a lot. Then I'd love to open it up, people with their questions. Keith had talked about how to handle emotions. If there's things like that people want to talk about, I'm happy to go there. But I'll give my little overview on coping in general, if that sounds okay to you guys.
You bet.
You know, I do this for various support groups at times, and I have a file folder from the different talks I gave, and I pulled it out, and there are some 20-year-old looking pieces of note paper from my early ones on there. And in one of the first ones I did, I saw that I was talking about coping, and I said, you know, if you had a stroke, what are you coping with? And I listed a bunch of things that might come from a stroke that would be a challenge to cope with. And I could see that must have been early in my career, because at this point, that seems really ridiculous for me to step up in front of a group of people and say, here's the things you might be dealing with. I saw one from years later where I like to use a chalkboard a lot when I present. So if this was a regular room, I would be at a chalkboard
video
where I asked if
they didn't acknowledge us appearing. So I haven't tried, I don't know what to do to.
So I think Susan, they're not sure if they're connected, but they are. Can we help?
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Excuse me, may I suggest that everyone put themselves on mute? Because when you talk with her,
Share
we
screen,
can't hear.
chat. There's,
That be all right?
I don't,
Yeah.
well, on the left.
I was gonna do it myself. Let me just do it, and then when somebody has a question, just raise your hand if you don't mind, or something, or.
That'd be great.
I can't see everybody's picture, so.
All right. Okay, back to me. Oh, wow. Now I really have a captive audience. So I was saying that, you know, early in my career, I gave a talk like this, and I told people what kinds of things they might have to cope with. I recognize that there's no surprises there for you guys. You're dealing with these things. Later on, I gave one where I got up to the board and I had you guys name a bunch of things that are challenging for you. I don't have a board here. I like that better, but I'm just going to trust that you know what's challenging about this. You're dealing with those things, and I'll talk about some strategies to cope with things, and you all you know, can let me know if you feel like they apply or if you have questions about other things. So when I talk about coping, the thing I always emphasize is it's not a matter of, you know, we cope with this or we don't cope with it. We're always coping. It's just some of our coping isn't very good, and some of it is good. And what we want to do is focus on those coping strategies that are helpful versus the ones that aren't helpful, or the ones that are more adaptive. And you know, we're never at our best all the time. We always try some things that sometimes don't work. Most of us, you know, everybody has gotten to this age. You've developed some coping skills. You have coped with some stuff. You do know how to cope, but a lot of times that first step is what we miss, is we don't use those coping skills. You know, I know I'm terribly guilty of that. I know that for me, you know, some kind of regular exercise is a really good coping skill. When things get tough, I drop my exercise program sometimes because I'm real busy or I'm real stressed. So the thing that could help, I don't do. Or, you know, eating healthy, eating well is a good way to cope. I'm a guy who grabs a donut when things get tough. If they're just tough for a day, that's not too bad. But when it's a long-term thing, that strategy isn't going to get me where I want to go. So even though, I know what's good coping, I have good skills, I also know that the time when I drop those is often the time that I need them the most. So the first step in coping with something that's difficult is think about, what you do that helps you get through the tough times, and do those things during the tough times, and do them in a way that you can sort of stick with them. Some things that that I find working with people with medical problems is that sometimes those skills that have been the most helpful aren't available because of the stroke or because of the medical problem. So I see that a lot with runners. People who are really into running find it to be, stress reducing and helpful. I'm not a runner. I really can't comprehend how running could ever actually feel good. But I know that a lot of people do feel that way. And when something like this happens and then they can't use their best coping skill, that they're handicapped with that. So that means sometimes we need to draw on our other coping skills or develop other things. So the first step is use the coping skills that you have. Second step is if your favorite coping skills don't work in this situation, broaden it, look for other things that you can do. The third step I look at is, if your favorite coping skill doesn't fit exactly, then we try to adapt it. So using running as an example, there's a lot of things that people get out of running. They're usually outdoors. That's a piece that feels good. They're doing something, repetitive that keeps them from thinking about stressful stuff because they're focused on what they're doing. Their movement, some kind of exercise. So, we look to adapt that. If you can't run because your legs or your balance don't let you, if outside is part of it, can we get you outside? Can we get you moving in some way that can apply some of those coping skills, that even if it's a little different? I keep talking about them as being skills, and I think that's true. I think the other thing that we can do is get better with the skills that we have. So, for me, a big one, I teach a lot of relaxation, meditation kind of skills. I use those skills, but I also think that, when I'm not practicing regularly, they're not as effective. And so when you have a big challenge like recovering from a stroke, you want to take your skills, practice them more consistently, get better at them, really build those skills and optimize them. And then there's always learning new skills. And, I think things like the support group like this, where you're sharing things that work for you, can give you ideas for other things that you could use. Or working with somebody like me or a psychologist or a counselor can also help you explore what else might be a useful strategy to use. So developing some other skills that might be helpful. That's a piece of coping, is using coping skills. The other piece that I think is equally big that we often overlook is reducing obstacles. Don't cope with anything you don't have to cope with. A lot of us get stuck in I've done it this way before, and now and now I'm going to keep pushing until I can do it this way again. And we make things harder than they need to be. Your goal is, successful functioning. So it's a part of a way to get there is to make the route as smooth as possible. So let me give you an example that comes to mind for me is tying shoes. For a lot of people after a stroke, it's a challenge to tie your shoes. And I see people struggle and work at that. And it messes up their day after day, when there are other options. There are now Velcro lace shoes, or there are slip-on shoes. There are things, making it easier is not cheating. It's not copying out. It's just giving you more time in your day to do what you want to do and to be successful moving forward, rather than having continued frustration or failure experiences. Another one that we recently ran into in my house is that we have one shade that slides up, but you can only get to it from one position, and it's hard, it's awkward to reach. And I watched this, you know, for weeks, different family members get in this precarious position and try to open and close the shade. And we moved, you know, we moved a vase and slid a couch over a little bit, and now you can walk right up and open the shade. So it was an obstacle that was there that we were coping with in a not very productive way, frustrating everybody, until we made a little bit of a movement. And now that's not even an issue. That's something that doesn't have to be coped with. And I think we often overlook that. We try to just do everything the way we've always done, and don't recognize that it's really positive to streamline it so that you can focus on the hard things that you want to accomplish, and have more successes, and keep moving forward. And there's lots of ways of reducing those obstacles. Things like fatigue is always difficult when there's any kind of injury to the brain, because the body's working so hard to heal up, and just people don't have as much energy. And I often tell people I've worked with, I know I've worked with some of you, so you probably hear me preaching the value of naps. I say I went to school for 27 years, and here I am sitting in my office telling people what you really want to do is take a nap. But in our culture, that's so hard to do. People think that it's a wrong thing to do. But if coping with being fatigued all afternoon is really being difficult and making it so your brain isn't working as well, your frustration tolerance isn't as good, you can reduce that stress by scheduling in that nap and getting the rest that your body needs. So I think things like that can be hard to do. When I'm advocating for naps, I always just blame it on our culture, because we're this, you know, go hard all day culture. And you know, if I lived in Spain, it wouldn't be such a hard sell. People just stop in the middle of the day and they take their break, and it's accepted and celebrated. So I think, you know, we can make some of those kinds of changes. Another cultural for us is accepting help. And when you have somebody who offers to do something, who can make a task a little bit easier for you, again, allowing you to focus your energies and your coping efforts on something else, it can be hard to accept that, but it can be the absolute appropriate thing to do. And I see that as part of coping. The other one I just throw in there is scheduling. When we're recovering from something like a stroke, a lot of time that flexibility in our planning, fitting things into the day, dealing with changes. If I think the day is going to go this way and then it goes another day, that can just be completely overwhelming. And most of us, you know, can kind of live like that okay until something like this hits. And then it's hard to cope with all of those unexpected changes, those shortened timescales. So putting a lot of effort into scheduling, putting things in where there's enough time to do them, putting it where you know where it is so you don't forget things, can just reduce the difficulties that you have to cope with during the day. So those are a couple of my little tips for coping, and sort of how I view coping in general. The one other piece I would like to squeeze in there is kind of related to what Lene was talking about with celebrating our successes. And I have this conversation with so many people when I hear them, how down they are on themselves because they're not doing something the way they wanted to, and they're not getting better as fast as they wanted to. And it's almost universal with people I talk to that we are so much harder on ourselves than we are on other people. And I think part of what, you know, these kind of groups help with is seeing other people and seeing how good you feel when you see that somebody else in the group has made a little bit of a success. I would like it if you could all enjoy that feeling for your own successes as well. And a lot of us just aren't very good at that. So one of the strategies that I talk to people about very often is when you hear yourself being upset with your state, with how long it took you to tie your shoes this morning, or, you know, how difficult it was to put that coat on, you know, look at what you would say to somebody that you cared about that was in that situation other than you. And invariably people say, well, no, I'd be really proud of them for trying. I would be so impressed that they got that coat on after 20 minutes instead of not getting it on at all. You know, I would be super, I would never say anything mean to them about it. And yet when it's ourselves, we're often scolding and being mean to ourselves. And I think just keeping that in mind for a little while as you look at what would I say to my best friend or my mom or my daughter if they were doing this thing, and you would say nice things to them. You would say, you know, you would celebrate their little successes, and there's no reason why you don't deserve that as well. It is harder sometimes, but I think just doing that exercise of like, would you say that to your kid? No, then don't say it to yourself. Is a really good exercise. One exercise that I got in a workshop one time was the instructor had put up a picture of himself as a little kid, and he said, you know, do this, look at yourself, find a picture of yourself as a little kid. What does that kid deserve? That kid deserves, you know, love and support and forgiveness, and you know, some patience with how they learn. And that kid, that is you. You didn't change. You're older, but there's no reason you deserve anything less now. You are still that person that deserved to be treated like that when they were little. And I sometimes think we look in the mirror and we forget about that, you know, sweet little kid that started out that's still in there somewhere. And when we, you know, we treat other people like they have that sweet little kid in them, we're less likely to give ourselves that break. So if there's a couple of things you take away from my little lecture today, one would be, you know, use your coping skills. You have them, get them in place. And the second one would be, don't be mad at yourself if you're not doing that as well as you would like to. When you do it, congratulate yourself. When you don't do it, get back on top and do it, and then be proud of yourself for figuring it out and doing it again. And the third one is, you know, watch for those obstacles. If something is hard, you always want to ask yourself, is this something I need to work real hard at getting better at? Or is this something I can just eliminate? Can I just move that stupid vase so I can reach the curtain and not have to balance precariously every time I make that move? You know, can I wear my slip-on shoes instead of trying to tie those stupid laces, and be on about my day? So those are, you know, as I look at coping, those are some generalities, but I babbled away a little bit, and I would love to open up, see if you guys have thoughts or you want to add stuff, or you have questions for me. But all your mics are muted, so we might have to.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to look for hands, or you know, you probably can unmute yourself if you want, but if you got a question, you know, raise your hand and let me know, please, or, you know, and I'll unmute you.
I don't know if I'm muted or not, but.
You're not, you're fine.
You're not.
Okay. So that, you know, Jim, you really touched on something that I've been thinking about a lot, which is celebrating these little victories. So I wonder, do you have any pointers how we can engage our families to celebrate with those little victories with us?
You know, I think that's a real good point. It's good to, you know, have that engagement of other people and to help them to see that. You know, usually when I work with somebody, I pull in a family member for a session or two, and we talk about that exactly. And I think that's the way to do it. Just say, hey, I heard this presentation at the support group today, and it seems like a good idea if we really focus on some of these little successes. So I'm going to try, you know, to celebrate this. And if you see me making any little gains, I'd love it if you just said, hey, I noticed that, nice job. What's so amazing that I see time and again is that even when we ask a loved one to reinforce psychologists, we call it reinforcing something, but you know, to celebrate a positive or to see something good, even if I asked you to mention that whenever you see it, and I know you're just doing it because I asked you, it still feels really good when you do it. So it doesn't make it not count because I asked you to do it. You know, most people just don't think of it and they're happy to, they want to help, they don't know how. So having that conversation with family members and say, you know, hey, when I have a little success, when I do something on my own, or, you know, I look a little more solid in activity, I'd love it if you would just say, hey, I saw that, nice job. And I think they're happy to do it and it will feel really good.
Very cool. Kim, go ahead.
I just want to say something. I've got a couple of things to say. Thank you, Jim, for speaking. I think sometimes for family members, they feel so for us and they feel frustrated that we're not further along than we are. And you know, and they don't mean it negatively, but they, you know, it hurts them to watch us. And so for me, I have compassion for my husband when he is shaking his head and when and I'm walking. It used to upset me, and now I realize, oh, bless his heart. You know, he's just having that moment because he loves me so much. He is feeling, you know, he's feeling sorry that I'm having to go through this. And that makes me even want to celebrate what I'm doing even more. So, I mean, I just turn it around. And then I have a couple things. So what I discovered in frustration, I've coined this find the giggle. What I realized talking about tying your shoes, I was so frustrated with the tying of the shoes. And then I began to start, I recognized, oh, I'm getting so upset. And I started laughing. I started giggling. And as I opened up to a different emotion, because the more frustrated and the more upset I got, then I couldn't tie my shoes. But as I relaxed into it and found it as an opportunity, we talk about obstacles. And that's the other kind of a little tick that you can do in your head is admit that it's an obstacle, and then remind yourself within the obstacle, there is an opportunity. Where is my opportunity? And one of the things you said is maybe my opportunity is to wear slip-on shoes. Maybe my opportunity is to just little by little, just take, you know, things little by little and enjoy. We've got to enjoy our lives. That's the bottom line. We must on our own enjoy our lives, you know? And so those are the few things I wanted to add.
Good stuff. I like all that stuff. I think with the difficulty with things like tying the shoes, one of the things that is most frustrating is when we think something's going to be easy and it's not. And we really get stuck in the past with something going to be easy. Like, how many times have you struggled with tying your shoes and still you go to tie your shoes and you don't recognize, oh, this is something hard. When you go, okay, well, like Lene did today, and say, putting on this coat is going to be hard, but I'm really going to work on it. It's a challenge. It feels good. You get there. But when you think, oh yeah, I just slip on my coat and it doesn't work, that's when it's frustrating. But that's also an opportunity for finding that giggle, because, you know, of course it wasn't going to be easy. It hasn't been easy since my stroke. So I think, you know, you can just go to the extreme with that and laugh about it and move on. But when you look at it and say, I'm going to try this, it's going to be hard, you're not going to get the kind of frustration that you get when you somehow go back in your mind to think, of course, you know, this shouldn't take long. It's going to take long because it's a hard task.
I want to add one thing, just one thing. That idea of hard, what I've found is if I say challenging, I want to do it. But if I say hard, it makes me lose my initiative. So it's just like that little word change is, you know.
Words are powerful, and finding your right words is really important. Absolutely.
Very good. Hey, thank you, Kim. Joyce, did you still have a question?
Yes, I want to ask Jim, what effects COVID has many effects on many people. What were the reason to is there a reason to overcome it? Yes, but how?
So what effects COVID has it's had big effects on people, and how do we overcome it is your question?
Yep.
And I think the biggest effects of COVID is the isolation. I'm a cognitive behavioral psychologist. So when I work with people, I say, hey, you want your feelings to be better. Let's change the way you're thinking, and let's change the things you're doing. So I spend so much time with people with these plans to get out, interact in the community, go do things, be with people. And COVID hit, and I had all these treatment plans with people, and they would show up, and I'd say, all those things that we've been talking about for the last 8 weeks for you to do, don't do any of those things. They're dangerous now. So all those things that we want to do that help our mental health and that help our, social connectiveness just got wiped out in no time at all. So it's been really hard on everybody. And it's been a much longer haul than I think anybody anticipated. And I also know that now, as we are looking at vaccines and things are going to start opening back up, that a lot of people are telling me that it feels scary to go back out there again because we haven't done it for so long.
Wow.
So that's sort of me all agreeing that, yeah, this is really hard. The next thing is, how do we move forward in it? The first step is keeping the connections that we can, and things like the Zoom group are awesome. And I could see that when you guys hopped on and started saying hi to each other, you've kept that connectedness. It's fun to see each other. Even though you're in your own places, you've got that social connection. And I think that's really important. Throughout this, so many of my patients and my colleagues have told me about how they've reconnected with family or with old friends that they've started doing Zoom, weekly or monthly meetings with, just to have some of that connection. And I think that's really good and important. But I also know that with some strokes, that verbal communication is the hardest thing. And that's all that you're left with a Zoom. When you're in the room with somebody, you can communicate in so many different ways. You can get your point across. And so Zoom is hard. I'm super excited that the vaccines turned out to be as effective as they look like they are, which will really allow us to start getting back out there.
In regards to the vaccine, there's talk about 2 vaccines now. There's talk about a booster
right,
that has to follow the first vaccine. So we don't know more than we do know.
right. There's still a lot we don't know. We know that the 2 vaccines that are out in the States are highly effective against the initial virus, and at least one of the mutations, it looks like they're very effective against that. So, my approach is to be excited about that, move forward with it. And if, the next one comes along and we need a booster, we'll work on that as it comes.
I heard Dr. Fauci say yesterday that we should wear 2 masks instead of 1.
He's recommended double N masks.
Wow.
All right.
The first thing I did, I bought another mask.
Uh-huh.
Heard about that too, and I didn't read up on it, but it's very specific, and they explain how to wear 2 and what type of mask they have to be, and it's for protection against the new variants, the new mutations. So I would, before you actually do it, I would definitely read up and research it a little bit, because I don't think it's just for everything. I think it's specifically for the new mutations.
But you never know where the new variant is.
Right, exactly. I know. I'm just saying,
yeah,
that's what it's protecting you against, which we don't know. We don't know where it's at, of course.
right.
But
and it is a case where the information changes frequently, so it's important to keep up on it and, you know, make your best decisions and take your best shot.
Can, let me ask you a quick question, Jim, as well.
Sure.
So let's talk about naps for a second. I'm kind of switching it a little bit, but you know, you talked about the fatigue and the naps, and then you know, I put a note on here, brain growth, because you know, I think a lot of us, I as one of those, was told, you know, to take naps, and you referred to that. Would you just expand on that a little bit for us? Because, you know, some of us do take them, some of us don't. What's your take on the nap in general?
You know, I mostly look at it in terms of function, both like social function, managing your mood and frustration, which for all of us goes down when we're fatigued, and then, you know, physical and cognitive ability to do things when we get tired. It slows down. We're more likely to make mistakes. It takes longer to do things. And so when I'm looking at optimizing coping, I'm wanting people to function, to get as much in their day, as much enjoyment, and as much productivity as they can. So many people approach that by just trying to push hard through the whole day. And what we see, especially with there's any injury to the brain, is that as the brain fatigues, our ability to function just drops. And so if you're pushing hard all day, but you have less and less sort of brain helping you out, it gets really frustrating. You don't get as much done. You work extra hard to do what you do get done. And that's where I like naps, or even really good rest breaks, just stopping for a while and letting the brain not do anything. And you know, the specifics I get with that is that if you are looking at something, your brain is working. So a lot of people find it relaxing to watch a little TV or to read a little bit, and that's good, but that's not resting your brain. So when I talk about a rest break, I mean, you know, getting a supported, comfortable position, sitting or lying down, closing your eyes, and just letting that brain idle for 20 minutes or an hour. If you sleep, if you're tired and you need sleep and you do that, you'll fall asleep. But even if you don't need sleep, if your brain just gets that time, that really good 20 minutes, half an hour where it's not processing information, it's gonna be functioning better for the rest of the day. And even what we see is you take out that half hour or that hour of the day, but then you function better the remainder of the day. You end up getting more done than if you hadn't taken that time out and just kept plugging away at a lower rate of effectiveness.
Awesome. That's awesome.
We know that a ton of the healing happens in all parts of our body when we sleep. And, you know, generally you can get all that healing that you need in a good, you know, 8 or 9 hours of sleep at night. But when you're, especially with a fresh brain injury, your brain is working harder to heal and your body wants more sleep. And, you know, it will tell you that if you stop and you get that rest break and you fall fast asleep, you needed sleep. And if you're doing that and you can still go to sleep at night, you know, you're just giving your body what it needs.
Well, you can't go to sleep at night. If you take a nap during the day and then it interrupts you, you're going to bed at the same time every night.
Yeah. If you're sleeping during the day and then you're not sleeping at night, then I don't advocate sleeping during the day. I still advocate a rest break. You know, where you lay back, close your eyes and let your brain rest.
Okay.
But if you're getting enough sleep at night and taking a nap starts to mess that up, consolidated sleep is the best, but a lot of us don't get it. After an injury or as we get older, we don't do as well at getting that solid 8 hours. And so oftentimes your body will grab it at other times. So get that rest break in, close your eyes, really relax, and then go on about your day. And if you don't need sleep, that's fine. You still got some benefit out of it. But if you're sleeping well at night and you take an hour nap during the day, that means your body needs that sleep.
Very, very good. Did anybody else raise your hands, you guys, if you have a question? I've got one other. Okay, Susan?
They're muted.
Oh, here, I'm gonna unmute you here, just a second. Can you hit your, there you go.
Can
Go
you
ahead.
hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
That was our question. We weren't too sure we were involved.
What was the question?
Our question was, we weren't too sure we were actually linked in with you guys or not.
I've been watching you guys this whole time, so you at least.
We didn't think it was funny.
I'm glad you're here.
Oh, sorry about that.
That was our first
time. Well, I had one other quick question. I'm not trying to take the time here, but if anybody else didn't have a question, I want
to pop in just one bit. I can't let this opportunity go by to remind everybody that according to the local pulmonologist I saw, 50% of the stroke patients, people who have had strokes, have sleep apnea, and frequently it goes undiagnosed. So it doesn't matter what age you are. Alicia, Brett, you guys can have it just as much as some of the rest of us. And so I would encourage everybody to really ask your primary care for a sleep study. It's covered by insurance. I recently had this happen, and I found out I had severe sleep apnea. Since I have gone on a sleeping machine, I can't tell you how it's changed my fatigue level. My energy is increased by 300%. So I think that's something as stroke patients, we need to be an advocate for ourselves. So I think it should be a routine prescription for everybody as they recover from stroke to make sure you don't have sleep apnea. Because if you do, they'll treat you and you'll feel very different. Thank you.
That was awesome, Lonnie. Thank you.
Yeah. You've got to be an advocate. What I have found, I had to ask my primary care, and it turned out he said, sure, he prescribed it. I had severe sleep apnea. I was stopping breathing 46 times in an hour. Now, can you imagine how tired that must have made me? And then, of course, I thought, what if I would have had a sleep study right after my stroke? Would my brain have healed better as I was getting better sleep? I don't know the answer to that.
Jim, you want to comment on that?
You don't know the answer, but it sure, sort of makes logical sense. Your brain needs sleep to heal. And I agree with everything Lene has said. We know that a lot of people, most people who have sleep apnea don't know it unless they have a partner who complains about their snoring. And, a lot of times people resist it and say, oh no, I fall asleep instantly. I don't have any trouble sleeping. But what they don't know is that throughout the night, they're not getting oxygen. And so their sleep is really poor. And also, like Lene said, I know numbers of people who, once they get their sleep apnea treated, it fixes so many things. All the things that go with sleep deprivation. They have more energy. They handle frustration better. They're less moody. They usually lose weight. It's just, you do better with sleep, which is kind of a obvious statement, but a lot of people have plugged away with that for so long, they don't really recognize that they're dealing with that until it gets fixed, and then life is a lot better. So yeah, I agree with Lene. It's a pretty simple thing to check out, and you just ask your doctor for it if you haven't had one.
Wow.
What is sleep apnea?
Oh, good question. Sleep apnea is when during certain stages of sleep, there's obstructive sleep apnea where something blocks your airway. So when everything relaxes and you're asleep, part of your muscles or your fat will move into the area where you're supposed to be breathing and block it. And if you're asleep and your air gets blocked, you'll wake up to make yourself breathe, but not enough to really notice it. So you'll snore or you'll cough a little bit, you'll move a little bit, and you'll get the air moving again. And then you'll be right back asleep, and it happens so fast you don't really notice it. But if that's happening 46 times in an hour, you're never getting into the deep restorative stages of sleep, because every time you start to get there, your body wakes you up to make sure you take a breath. There's also central sleep apnea, where it's more of a software problem, that as you get into those deep stages of sleep, something electrically that's supposed to tell you to breathe isn't happening right. And again, your body's built so that it will set off emergency signals and wake you up. You'll breathe, but then it messes with your sleep. So sleep apnea is that term for not getting oxygen when you're asleep at night, and it can be treated really effectively. So
that was a great explanation. Thank you so much. You know, you all, or at least for me, you know, you hear about sleep apnea and stuff, but you don't really get into what it really means. And thank you. That was very
sure.
good.
I'm sorry I didn't do that off the top. We just, you know, we live with these terms all the time, and we forget that everybody else doesn't. So it's,
yeah.
Thanks for asking.
That was awesome. One last really quick question, then we'll move on to other things here. Scheduling and enough time to do them. Do you find, and heck, I could probably ask everybody that's sitting here on this meeting as well, but from a scheduling point of view, you know, it used to be I could do X amount in an hour, right? And then when, you know, and I'm 10 years past, by the way, and I still struggle with having the, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do things as quickly as I did before. Anyway, I just wanted a general, just to throw that out to you, Jim, and see what your thoughts were on that.
I'm glad you did. This is one that I see a lot and I focus on, and that I'm working on myself. One of the things that I see is we so often set ourselves up for failure. So I'm just going to give my personal example here. I don't work on Wednesday afternoons. I've set up my schedule so I have Wednesday afternoons off from the hospital, but that means that Wednesday afternoons, I want to go to the bank, I want to mow the lawn, I want to wash the car. I have this huge list of things. And for years, every Wednesday at the end of the day, I would say to my wife, man, I didn't get any of this. I didn't get half of this stuff done. You know, Wednesdays suck because it's always a failure. It was always a failure. I set it up so I had that time. That's wonderful, beautiful time to enjoy when I have off from work and I can do these other things. But I always put so much on the list that I guaranteed failure every single Wednesday. And it took me forever to figure out that that wasn't a healthy or a productive way to go. So I have changed my list making for my Wednesday afternoons, and I put 2 or 3 things on that I want to make sure I get done. And they're not, you know, they're not all mow the lawn and wash the cars. I want to play guitar on Wednesday afternoon. That's part of what brings me joy. I'm going to do that. So I put that on along with 2 things that I'm sure I can get done. And then I might list 3 bonus things. So if I get through my 3 things, there's more there. I got, you know, so I do my priorities. So they're there. So if I get more time, I'm doing the right stuff. And that's what I think is important about schedules. But I also put my little victory line after number 3. And if I get to that, the end of the day, I can declare success and I can feel good about my day. That made a huge difference for me. I get to celebrate my successes every Wednesday because I did the things I wanted to do. And maybe I got a bonus one done, but I'm not going to kick myself if I didn't get those other things done. And that's me, you know, without a stroke, just being 59 years old and trying to do, you know, still not having learned how much I can do in a day. But when it's, you know, when you have some kind of a disability that's going to make it harder, I can see how it's hard to make that accurate list. So all I can say is, you know, if your list is too short, if you schedule not enough stuff and you have extra time, you go ahead and put on those bonus things that you would do if you got to them, but make sure you give yourself credit for just getting through the, the minimum amount so that you have successes, and you'll be more productive. You'll feel better, and there's no loss. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do a whole lot less because, I'm declaring victory after 3 things. If you get those 3 things done and you have time, you'll do the next one. But also you don't guarantee, like I was doing that. And like, it sounds like Keith, you were saying you're experiencing, I don't want to guarantee a failure. I don't like failure experiences. So
yeah, and the frustration.
Adjust that schedule so that you get to have some successes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's because those frustrations come in, and we all have them as stroke survivors anyway. Everybody has them, right? But anyway, yeah, that was awesome. We only have a few minutes left. First of all, let me just say, Jim, thank you so much. That was awesome. It was incredible. I'm sure everybody's going to say the same thing. And we thank you so much for that. You can hang out if you want for a few more minutes, or we just got a couple minutes. I got a couple things to go over, or not. That's up to you.
I'm going to check out because I do have a couple other things to do, but thanks for inviting me, you guys. I really enjoyed this. And hang in there. I'm sure I'll see you all around. I see most.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, couple of quick things on the agenda. Next meeting is on February 9th, and we're going to have Don and Darren speak. Darren, we can't hardly see him. He is on here, by the way.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, it's already 6 o'clock here and it's getting pretty dark.
Yeah. They do have those things called lights, Darren.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a hard time, buddy.
And I appreciate that.
His wife, Dawn, wrote this book called Armored. And it's awesome. I'm enjoying it very much. So they're going to be speaking next on the February 9th. And then on the 23rd, we're going to have Carol Ann or somebody with Destination Rehab again. And we're kicking off a good year, you guys. We're off to a really good start. I want to thank everybody. Now, before we end up, I want to give everybody a chance to talk about their small victories. And like Lanae said real quick. So anybody want to chime in here?
I will, I guess.
Okay.
Let me have a victory.
I will. So it's not this week, but last week I worked 4 days in a row. And that's the first time that I've done that since my stroke. I always have had to have the most I've done is 2 days in a row and then had to take a day off. But typically I work every other day. And then, Sunday, Monday, I work in a row. But last week I worked, well, I guess it was like running into the last week. I worked like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then I had a day off. But my weekdays are not really days off because I have appointments and therapies and workouts. And, I try to do a lot. So just like he was saying, so that's really helpful for me because I'll be able to try to knock my list down a little bit. But yeah, the working 4 days, I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it, but I did it.
That is so cool.
Awesome, Alicia.
It was nice. Before everything, I worked 5 days in a row, sometimes, more, but that's like the normal life is 5 days in a row, like Monday through Friday. And now I was like, wow, I did 4. And, I was struggling to do 2, and I did 4 and we were busy.
Yeah.
And I survived.
Good job. That's awesome. We're running out of time here. I wanted to say one last thing. I wanted to just encourage everybody on the call here. You guys, it's so easy to focus on our negatives and the stuff that goes out through the day. I want to ask you guys, every one of you, to focus on your potential. Think about where can I go from here and work toward it. Put some effort into your own growth. because it's just going to pay off huge for everybody. And I just believe that with all my heart. I just wanted to make sure that I said that as well. Anybody else have anything before we adjourn?
It's great to see everybody.
It
I
really
know
is.
someone said that earlier, but I love it when I come on the stroke support group because I think we all are so isolated and we have busy lives. Just to see the familiar faces and just see everybody doing so well.
Yeah.
Okay.
We appreciate every one of you guys. Be sure and,
There's
invite
Karen.
others.
Nice to see you all.
Yeah, she popped in here.
Good.
I just wanted to thank you, Keith, for the
Yeah.
effort you put into
Yeah,
it,
let's
and
see.
Lene.
No, it's Keith.
Oh.
It's both.
I wondered, Alicia and Brett, I wonder if we could stay on a little bit and talk about a younger person support group.
Sure.
I can stay on.
Sure.
I mean, anybody's welcome to stay on. Alicia has offered to maybe spearhead a young person support group. And she won't leave our regular support group. But I just think, but I think that's a wonderful opportunity for Stroke Awareness Oregon. Brett's been a big part of our community. And I just think we really need to talk about ways to serve that younger community, because as we all know, stroke affects every age.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this, Lonnie. If anybody wants to head out, go ahead. And thank you guys so much for being here. And then a few of us will stay on here and talk with
anybody who wants to is
What
very
does
welcome to do
younger
that.
mean? What does younger mean?
Thanks,
Yeah.
Keith. I've got a therapy session to go to, so I've got to go.
Oh, you better get going.
Yes.
Who was asking what does younger mean? Who was asking?
I know.
Under 70, under 70.
50?
And
Remember I asked this question the last time.
Yeah, and Keith was like, I'm older. I'm like, not really, but no. So we were thinking under 50. I mean, is that a good cutoff? Because
well, I guess what I was thinking is, I don't know that we have to have an age. And I would love if maybe we could get Brett. I know I'm putting you a little on the spot,
Uh-huh.
but if we could get maybe Brett to collaborate with Alicia, and maybe we can find another younger person, however we define that, to jump in. I don't know that it's age related. A lot of it has to do with stage in life. I know Brett's got children. How many children do you have, Brett?
2.
2. So,
yeah.
Your
Grace and Reese.
issues are certainly different. So it's not so much an age cutoff, but it's even a lifestyle change.
Right.
Alicia, you certainly represent that, younger generation. But I really think that there's people that we aren't serving, that if we had a group, that they would be attracted to that.
yeah, it's unfortunately become, I mean, obviously it happens at any age, but it seems, I mean, and I probably noticed it more because it happened to me, but it seems more prevalent now than it ever did before. And maybe it's because we're recognizing it, and before people didn't know it was happening or didn't seek medical care for it. But it is more prevalent. And so we definitely need to make it known that there is help for those people, because I mean, the younger people are the tech savvy ones and the ones that want to try to, regain as much as they can. I mean, not that everybody doesn't, but I mean, it's just like, I haven't had kids. I still want to be able to have kids. I'm getting older, and this totally affected my life. But I mean, obviously, like Lanae, you're not looking to potentially have children. So like, there's a lot
exactly.
There's
and I'm not parenting children like Brett is,
And we had a talk one time, like someone was talking about Medicaid or Medicare, and I'm like, I'm nowhere near that. And so it's
right.
there's totally different things that we're going through. Cause I mean, that's
Right.
not something I have to think about right now. And same with Brett. I don't think he has to think about that quite yet either. So,
No. No.
No, and I know that there are people in our community, of course, now it doesn't matter where they are, but I know of several women that have had children that have had strokes. They're busy with their life. And I think that we could really serve them better. And yet I don't know what that looks like because obviously I'm old. And why are you laughing, Keith? So, but I think if we gathered 2 or 3 people, together, I don't know, we might even be able to coerce Asa to jump in. He had his stroke at 39 and now he's busy getting a teaching credential and is going to teach. But he really represented that younger generation. I know there's a young man named Angel who, Angel is only 18.
18, yeah. That's sucks, and just bad, just man, that's
gosh,
I
mean, I've heard of children, I've heard of babies. I mean,
right,
and it's so hard because like no matter what stage of life you're in, it takes away something you knew. But like for them, they didn't even get to know anything before it happened. Right. So it changes the entire way you grow up. And I mean, I guess it's that way with any sort of disability or like birth defect, but still like it's just crazy to think about. It's crazy to think about like the different phases in life and how differently it can, like how drastically it can change things for you.
It's
I can't imagine not being able to be 18 and like normal 18 and have to go through that.
Crazy.
But I mean, I also at 34, was cut off from normalcy for a while. So it's like it, but I know it's totally different.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Angel and Mom and what's that? Oh gosh, meeting once of the month. It's just like awesome family. Just kind of family. And the beer or just talk. It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
And I think, like Brett, you have so much to offer that younger generation, as does Alicia. And so, I think we may, we talked at Stroke Awareness to maybe evolve to where we have like a strong educational component that could be offered to anybody. And then maybe we would have breakout groups that would meet not at different times, obviously. So maybe there is the regular support group, maybe there's the men's support group, which we've certainly have had formed. And then maybe that real missing link is something to offer younger people. And I don't care how we define younger, because I don't think it really matters. If we were to say anybody under 50, we don't care if a 51-year-old comes.
Well, and it could be, I mean, and we also could say it doesn't have to be your age now. It could be just your age when you had your stroke, because people like Keith, he has valuable information that he's had to experience over the last 10 years. And I don't want to say getting older and transitioning from that younger to older, but I mean, it's realistic because you went from, being younger and like, you're just in a different stage in your life now than you were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't mind that you're calling him old, Alicia.
Well, and last time I told him he wasn't old. So, I mean, I'm confusing him here.
brutal.
I know, Brett, but I'm used to it from Alicia.
Okay.
I try not to. I mean,
no, that was perfect. We all love you. That was perfect. But,
you know,
so
I
I
know
wonder if, how do we put this together? And I wondered if maybe Brett, Alicia, and Keith, and if you guys wanted me, I'd sit in on it, but on Zoom. But really, how do we begin to put this together? Alicia has offered to kind of begin to lead it. So, or we coerced her into it. But
yeah,
I really,
that.
Right,
I
right,
really
right.
thought, Brett, it would be ideal if you and Alicia maybe could collaborate, and then Keith could be your mentor.
Right.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how we can reach out.
What's that?
I'm trying to figure out how we can reach out to people because like now that we have the Zoom capability, and the fact that we could gather more people from other areas, and especially in Oregon, but like the Pacific Northwest or just anywhere in general.
Right.
Right. I mean, I'm part of a lot of like Facebook support groups, and I'm sure I could get some other people who are interested. I mean, because of the rarity of like what happened with my strokes, I've had a lot of random reach outs from people who have had similar experiences, but they're all different ages and they're all over the country or world. And they're just like, hey, this happened to you too. So, I mean, I can reach out to those people and get them in here and say, hey.
Alicia, let's do this. Let's kind of get a short plan put together of what it's going to look like, what it's going to be and stuff. And then let's start reaching out to some folks, because the Facebook groups, there's a young survivor group there. I'm sure you're well aware of. And
I'm in that one with you.
And there's quite a few groups that I belong to as well. And then we can reach out, but let's not reach out until we kind of define what we're doing here.
Right.
Yeah. So
I'm just wondering how we can gain interest, or like, I don't know.
I think there's quite a bit we can do. Part of it is we're really working on educating the local medical community. So really, and that really is maybe all of Oregon. We have to educate the primary cares because they see patients. We have to educate the therapists and all, so they will actually refer people to us.
That was my big thing when I did my interview with Ruth. I don't know if she ever gave that to you, but when I did that with her, I was like, because she said you guys were working on that. I know COVID has kind of messed everything up, but she's like, we're really working on, the outreach to schools, to everything, to get the word out that this, more about like everything and what to watch out for. And then also that we're here to support if and when it does happen to someone. And so I thought that, because that was my huge thing after, my experience with the paramedics and everything and not taking me seriously. Right. It was a big thing. Like, how can we change that? And I know it takes time, but that's, I think, bridging that gap is kind of the first thing, because if they don't believe that it's common or possible or whatever, then.
Right. And Alicia,
like it's hard for them to refer
that
people.
really goes a lot to the educational side of SAO and FAST, which we're actually, one of the things we're in discussion with right now is how do we animate, we call him the wiggly man, the man that one of our logos is a caricature of a man having a stroke. But we're looking at putting that into an animation that can actually be taken into the schools. But what, I want to focus a little bit. That's it. Exactly. There's our wiggly man. And so I think there's a lot of things that could happen. And when you think of a younger person's stroke support group, can you imagine how powerful it would be for you, even as we develop this, either you or Brett, to go into a public speaking arena and say, I was 34 when I had a stroke. But much different than me going in and, them looking and thinking, well, that's an old lady. I'm not going to have a stroke. But look if Brett goes in. He goes in and speaks, I'm a father of 2. I'm married. I had a very normal life. And this is what happened. So I think we're really on to something. It won't happen overnight. But you know,
Well,
we can
maybe
weave the,
18-year-old mentioned, because that would be beneficial, because that's even closer to like, schools or whatever, that age group.
yeah.
Well,
And more
let me
relatable.
interrupt. Let me just interrupt. And I think that Alicia and Brett and I, maybe, let's start some conversation and we'll start moving down the road, you know, because we could sit here and talk about a bunch of things forever. Let's keep, and Alicia, why don't you reach out to me and you and I will schedule a time. And
Okay.
Brett, and where we could either have another meeting or get on the phone or something and we'll move it forward. How about that?
That works.
Awesome.
Okay. The email, the Mike and Alicia and then Angel. I don't know the email. So
Yeah, I don't think I do either, but
Well,
we'll,
I have that in my records.
nice. That's awesome. Thank you.
we'll get a plan put together and go from there. How about that?
Yeah, I think it would be a good goal for like within the next like month to get something rolling, just because it's the beginning of a new year. And
just,
I mean, with COVID, we've all been out of touch with stuff. And I'm sure that like the normal ways that the hospital, like the social worker would normally go in and after someone has a stroke and communicate to them, I'm not sure if it's happening the same way that it did when I had my strokes.
And
But if it is,
remember, we've got a couple of other really good resources. One of that being Pat, who runs at Oregon Adaptive Sports. You know that he comes in contact with a lot of younger people.
Jeff. Yeah, great.
Yeah. And so we've also got Carol Ann, who's leading a bunch of adventure groups. And she's coming in contact with some of that younger generation too. So I think we have the makings, I know there are people in this community that would be interested in this.
Well, I like what you were saying. So it gives me some ideas. We'll do some email stuff back and forth, three of us, and we'll start going down this road.
Ashley.
The
work where?
What?
The work you?
Oh, where do I work?
Yeah, please.
I work at a place called Midtown Yacht Club.
That's it. Okay. What the beer or the eat?
All of it.
Oh.
So, but
damn.
I work inside where the beer is.
Okay, great.
But I do everything outside and the fires and the beer and everything. But the food carts do the
that's
food,
awesome.
so I don't do that.
Yeah, okay, great. So,
you know, that even potentially would be a great place later as we can move around for people to hang out.
Right.
That's awesome, you know.
And I have an inn.
Yay! Sorry.
Awesome. All right, guys. Are we good?
I think we are. Susan, it's so good to see you. And is it Gary? I can't remember your husband. David, good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, man. See ya.
Good to see you.
Oh, is it it's snowing like mad out here.
I know.
It's crazy.
They're on this.
White
and then
Christmas,
one
you know.
more thing for all of you. Keith, I think the next time we do the support group, we'll be having Sherry run the Zoom part because she's now up. Stroke Awareness has a part-time assistant who's fabulous. So she's taking over a lot of our administrative, tasks. And so now we actually have somebody that can run the Zoom part well, so that the moderator can be focused on the audience.
That's awesome.
That's
I
awesome.
love it. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much. It was a great meeting. I really.
All right, man. See ya. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.